you get in these spaces, and that's where you take ideology and you bring it into Christianity.
Right.
And now we have this new belief pattern of like, well, I don't think God would do this, or God would spite it's like an extremist in all. And it's like, God loves everybody. Yes, he does.
Yeah.
He still doesn't like sin. Welcome to CA Podcast. I'm Lance.
I'm Chad.
No, I wanted to call you Vinny just to get a rise out of you.
Yeah, I mean, I just wouldn't be mistaked for Vinny. I don't think. I don't think you can mistake me for Vinny, like, at all. But I mean, that's because how unique he is. He's just very unique.
And you're not.
No, I'm not unique at all. I'm very normal. I'm your stereotypical person.
Totally. The beard and the hair.
Yeah.
Just off of that, the voice.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure you get John Doe.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, you're like, you look at that guy that I've seen. Before.
Yeah. I'm just a normal person. I just slip through everything, you know. TSA doesn't have a poster of me. You know?
Not at all. Why is your backpack so full of stuff? Oh. I knew I was going to get to that.
That has happened. It's the Fort Lauderdale airport. Every single time they pull out and they're like, "Are these batteries?" I'm like, "Do they look like batteries?" Like, no, they're not batteries. They're like, "Okay, we need to swap them all." So they pull out all of my hard drives, which, you know, I have a lot of hard drives because of how many people I added for it. So they pull out every hard drive and swab just to make sure it's not a bomb. Here's every hard drive, swab every hard drive. So it's like 20 minutes at TSA.
I want to give you a little advice. If this was shaven,
probably
doesn't look like you've been in a
I'm being
stereotyped for the whole month.
I know.
But that's funny. A good lead-in, like stereotypes, personalities, abilities.
Yeah.
'Cause I think in life, there's a huge segment of people that have been handcuffed because somebody said something to them.
Right.
You know, we've done so many shows on breaking free, going for it. But when somebody tells you something,
dude, it
can sting depending on where they sit in the chain of how you respect them. Yeah.
And I mean, and the other thing too is so the chain of how you respect them, how others see that person too. Because if others see that person as like a incredible leader or whatever, and then they say something you all like, even if you don't respect that person, but your friends do, it can also sting too. Because even if you're like, I don't really agree with that person, but then they say something, it's like, oh, like the people that I love, that I trust, that I'm around, they believe this person when they speak in their life, and now they're like saying like, I'm not going to mount anything.
So not in a mounting, we were running in a camp for a long season, and their belief was you can have one spiritual father or mother.
Okay.
And so then it was like kind of hinting that you had to pick them.
Of course.
And so my wife was like super nervous that like, if we don't, they'll shun us.
Oh, wow.
And so just in those types of beliefs, it can really change your dynamic of what you think, who you assimilate with. And then it's like, then it became also a titlement. Like the only way to be an apostle is that Jesus has to show up in your dreams. Knight you with the actual flame. Right. Yeah. I thought an apostle is you're a builder.
Right.
You know, was it like a hierarchy that, and so people get these interpretations and then they start spreading misinformation, which we've been accustomed to now for about 5 years. And beliefs start happening and you're like, what do I believe? Because I've got one camp saying this, another camp saying the complete opposite. And you're like, oh my goodness, if I make the wrong move, someone's going to know that I'm wrong.
Yeah. And
you have to know where's that balance of knowing this is right.
Yeah. And I think, well, it comes down to a lot of times, like, it's one of those things where like you have to eventually become the own person. Like you have to own your own beliefs.
Right.
Like, and I think that's the thing, because even like when I was growing up and stuff, I went to a ministry school, and like one of the things I loved that they were pushing very hard when I was there was like, hey, this doesn't need to be the religion or the belief system of your parents. This needs to be your religion. This needs to be your belief system. This needs to be your walk with God. Because so many times, like you talk to people and it's like, they have all these beliefs, and it's the beliefs by proxy of their parents, their grandparents, friends. Because that's a lot of times when you look at deep into friendships, there's people that are living off the faith of their friends, and that's fine for a time. Because some of us, like, you know, we go through things in our life, and we need to live off the faith of our friends, our family, right? Like that's okay.
Especially if you've grown up. So it's probably the most normal when you've grown up in a Christian family.
Yeah,
you go to church.
Yeah,
you know you're supposed to go to church, but you're like, God didn't save me from this wretched,
yeah,
broken life. You're like, so I broke my brother's toy. Like that's not the worst thing you've done.
Right.
But at some point you're going to have to like say, I do believe in the Holy Spirit. I do believe. Yeah. And I was the opposite.
Yeah.
Like I was like, you got to prove it to me. So I was this wretched, mean teenager.
Yep.
So my parents went to a Pentecostal church.
Yep.
We were in a still AG, but we were in a different one because I had a better youth group, more from the same style friends. And that church mocked the move of God. So it probably made me cynical. That's why I'm cynical. I'm going to blame them. Yes. Is that we were like, what is this pushing down thing?
Right.
Because from the outside, it looks like you're getting pushed down.
100%.
Why are you speaking Sean dies?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't explained well.
Right.
And then my leaders were like, those people are crazy.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
and it was an easy thing to believe.
Yeah.
Not knowing anything about it.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get sucked into something when a leader is telling you misinformation.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, are they wrong?
Yeah.
Their approach could be wrong, but like I think we disqualify or overqualify without any information from the Bible.
No, yeah, for
not
sure.
From a leader, but actual Bible stuff, like, okay, I need to know this.
Yeah, and like I think that's perfect because like what I found myself is like believing things that were like other people's beliefs or other people's convictions that weren't necessarily biblical. They may have been founded off of biblical things, a story, things like that, but they were that person's belief system. So then when I was attaching to it, I didn't have the root system that person had. So what I found is when I was starting to, get into deeper in the ministry, deeper into the back end of things, I would have leaders that I held high in my life that said some pretty awful things to me. And because I wasn't rooted in anything, it was very tough and it almost like torpedoed me. I could have gone off the deep end. But one thing that kept me in it, and I'm not recommending this, but the way that I am and the way that you've known me to be is what I literally decided to do was like, it was like spite. I was like, I'm going to become a monument to that person that he's wrong. Like that, my life is going to be a monument dedicated to that person. That everything I do from now on that's successful is going to be saying you were wrong.
Right.
Now I've grown past that. Right.
But there's the two. There's the I'm going to prove you wrong.
Right.
Or I'm not going to do anything.
Right.
And it's so hard because neither are correct.
No.
Finding balance it takes time.
Yeah, it takes so much time, and I had to grow, and so that's how I made it through the tough times.
Right.
But then on the other side of it, when the war was over, and you're sitting there going, "That was awful." Like, how horrible of a person am I that that's what my motivation was. So my motivation wasn't who I was in God.
Right.
My motivation wasn't that I was a child of God. That wasn't that God had given me all these gifts. It was a spite. And it's like, that's where I had to change my mind, where I was like, I don't need to be a monument to somebody's, bad words. I need to be a monument of what he created me to be.
Right.
And so I think a lot of times if we're not based and we're not rooted in truth, what ends up happening is we end up grabbing hold of anything. It's like a shipwreck.
Right.
So when someone blows up your ship, like you're sitting here thinking, oh, this, that, and the other, and then a leader comes in your life and one of those things is like a leader could come in your life and they could see something inside you, right? And it may be jealousy that they get jealous of your gift or whatever. And then they see a legitimate fault, right? So what do? They attack the gift and then they correct you. And the same thing. So it's a correction, but it's also attack. And it's like, you have to see the correction and not the attack. Right. That's spiritual maturity.
Right.
Now, if it's all the time, like that's maybe spiritual abuse, right? Like if someone that's not okay. But at the same time, I think sometimes we have to, and we've talked about this so much in the past, but like we have to give grace to our leaders,
right?
Because our leaders are people, like they're fathers, they're mothers, they're people that are dealing with craziness at home, like
managing budgets,
bro, everything.
There's so much, and we're just like, love me, give me the perfect word, and you get in these spaces, and that's where you take ideology and you bring it into Christianity.
Right.
And now we have this new belief pattern of like, well, I don't think God would do this, or God would spite it's like an extremist in all. Yeah. And it's like, God loves everybody. Yes, he does.
Yeah.
He still doesn't like sin.
Right.
And that's why we have these movements where like everybody needs to come in, or, then there's the other camp where like, God's not a political God. He never went to Rome.
Yeah.
He never. So we're not going to deal with the politicalness.
Right.
We're going to just be a church.
Yeah.
yet when the political arm is passing bills that you can no longer be a church, it's like, well, God called us to be part of all of life.
Right.
Go live it, be an example.
Yeah.
And, you said it best. They're going through something, but when you're young in the faith and you're not weighing the actual word to what they gave you, you can take it as salt, like this, thus saith the Lord.
Yeah.
So, I'm in so I was right at the verge of dropping out of high school because of my dyslexia.
Yeah.
What am I going to learn? 1 year to go.
Wow.
What am I going to learn?
Yeah.
I'm going to learn I still don't write well.
Yeah.
I still can't read all of my reports.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I know it rubbed him the wrong way. So I'm starting to work. And so one day he called me and I want to get married. And he's like, you need a real job. I'm like, what's a real job?
Yeah.
I'm working 50 hours a week. I'm helping you. Like, what is a real, like in this,
you working with
my dad,
with your dad,
I still do.
Yeah.
But it was like, he goes, you need a real job. You need to know what it's like to work in the real world. And I'm thinking like, is there like a different style of work that I'm not familiar with?
Insane.
And I get what he was trying to say is that if something was to go bad, you need to know
there's a principle in it.
There was, but he also had the plan B.
Yeah.
Which now, looking into his life, we toiled for 5 years, got a startup church that was in the school.
Right.
They finally got the property. 1 year in, he's gone.
Oh, wow.
So he had a plan B. So what I realized is you end up getting their theology and their advice, and you have to, one thing, and that's probably the advice side of it, is look at a leader and look at their tenure of decisions. How many times are people coming in and out of their lives? How long has their friendships been?
Yep.
And then you start to realize this is how they make decisions.
Yeah.
Because if you're around a leader who seems to always have a new project, you'll be the new project until a newer project.
Exactly.
And then you're the leftovers.
Well, another thing is like, and this is just something that I look at is, so in the production world, right? You have turnover at positions, right? Which is fine. That's totally normal, right? Like people are going to leave, because at the end of the day, what we know is that if you're good at anything, you get better at things. And then the place you're at typically isn't able to house the budget that you could make down the road, right? I can make 10,000 more at this place, right?
Right.
So, okay, there's going to be normal turnover. But then when you look at a department and you have a leader that's been there, say 6 years, and they've seen 12 position turnovers under them, then you go, okay, that's not normal, especially when you're like, oh, there's only 4 or 5 positions.
Right.
Then you're like, oh, wow, they've had, almost a turnover every other year, or every year they've had, and that's like, oh, well, that speaks to their leadership, even though maybe they're a good leader, but maybe there's a flaw there. And it's like, well, do I want to serve under that, so like that's what I've looked at is say, well, what is their turnover in so you can even go as far as like people that have spiritual sons and daughters, like what's their turnover rate, like how many sons and daughters did they have, when did they lose them, that they didn't think, because you look at it, you're like, man, like that guy's a spiritual father, but like he has spiritual sons and daughters that just rotate the door, and it's like, well, why is that?
Right.
And so then it's like, well, then you start diving deeper into it, and some people are like, well, they're just super abrasive, super unrealistic, and then they end up hurting the people under them, and then they leave, and then a new group comes in, and it's like, so then you have to look at yourself and go, where am I based? Like where are my roots at? Where are my belief systems at? Because it also comes down to, what do you believe about yourself?
Right.
Because a lot of times we'll let other people's belief systems attach to us, and then we'll believe what they believe about us. And it's not necessarily, it's a bad thing, but then it's like, the truth is like, we have to love ourselves first. We have to love what God created us to be. And some people don't appreciate that, right? Like not the way God does. No one ever will appreciate the way that God appreciates you. So if you put the value of someone else and you don't put the value that God has in your life, you're going to end up in a situation where, number one, you're going to end up not liking yourself. You're going to end up in the comparison trap. And we know that's where that leads.
Right.
Is the comparison trap. You're sitting there going, oh, well, I'm not doing as good as so-and-so, or I'm not in my faith where I want to be at this so-and-so, or I'm not at the level of my trade as so-and-so. And then it's like, then you start to attack yourself internally. And all it was is just, you weren't based and rooted. And that's what I found in a lot of my life, is when I started the discontentment and stuff would set in with my trade or what I was doing or where I was at, a lot of times it was because someone said something and it hit an insecurity where I wasn't rooted.
Right.
And instead of fixing that insecurity, I reacted to that. And so instead of actually fixing it, I was like, oh, maybe I'm just not good at that.
Well, and the insecurity builds into like rejection.
Yeah.
Because, no one is like rejected without, there has to be a reason why you feel rejected. And
Yeah.
that insecurity festers. It's like a fungus.
Yeah. 100%.
And, one thing that was said to me that I believe is so true is we're fighting a war.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we're Christians. Yes, a lot of us that are working inside this ministry also serve the ministry. We work in another capacity, even outside of this place. And you have to work through personalities. And just because something was said does not mean it's over. Sure. When you came to where we're going to church, it took time to feel out people.
Yeah.
And the same advice could have been given day one.
Yeah.
But you chose to learn the people, learn what their objective is.
Right.
Because, I have been taught elephants can move a lot, but they're also going to cause some damage. Watch where you step.
Yeah.
And so my personality is one of those wide stepping, can step on a lot of toes. And so it's the objective is not to get the product done. It's not to hurt people in the process. And so as being on both sides of the fence, it's knowing, and I think it's slowing down.
Yeah.
Like you said, look at people, be rooted, because you are going to have to be able to weigh those words and say, okay, what do I do with it now? And a lot of people just want them to do the work.
Right.
Oh, you gave me this word. I agree. Therefore, I shall do it. And it's especially if it comes from a prophet, a pastor.
Sure.
We put so much weight on the weightiness of their giftings that has to be the Lord.
Right.
And it could be. It just takes time. And I think where we sit is we've been in this stuff for a lot of time and people don't know it. And I think, I've been here waiting for 3 weeks. And you're like, man, I wish I wish you could get it done.
Yeah. And there's I think the other side is there are times where things rapidly accelerate. We've both, oh my goodness, we've both lived it, rapid acceleration. But at the same time, I think the way I look at it too is are you willing to sow the seeds and sow the seeds and sow the seeds and then have to dig them all back up because you planted them in the wrong soil?
Right.
And then go back and plant in a new soil. Are you willing to go through that process? Because I think this is the other side. God's looking for willingness a lot of times where it's are you willing to stretch? Are you willing to do these things that you don't want to do?
Right.
And then it's then God can cause rapid acceleration and then you didn't even plant. All of a sudden, you're starting to see seeds from things that you were and harvest from things you're I didn't even know I planted that. But it's simple as this is when you forgive someone, you're planting seeds of forgiveness.
Right.
When you let that hurt go, you're planting seeds of letting that hurt go. So it's then you can see fruit from that.
Yeah.
Because I've seen that in my life just over the last year or two, in healing through different things. I just said, okay, I'm gonna let this thing go. I didn't plant new things or sit here and do this, that, the other. I just let things go.
Right.
And I saw fruit from that.
Right.
And so that's the thing is a lot of times it's very hard because you want to hold on to the emotions because I think a lot of times people are just in love with the adrenaline of being offended. And I'm going to prove them wrong, and it's I get that. I've been there. We've all been there. That's fun. I'm going to prove somebody wrong. They said I couldn't do this. Watch this.
Right.
All been there. And you know what? No fault to anybody that does it because we've both done that. We've both been there.
But it's nothing. You can't build long lasting relationships. It's not godly because then it's you put everything, I'll do it this way. And really the whole conversation is about people are messy.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be in the church.
No.
I think of all the relationship advice.
Yeah.
Oh, you should stay with them.
Oh,
no, you shouldn't stay with them. You really see it in, this whole ministry. We're all married. You look at it from the standpoint of when you see new people trying to date and you're already married, kids, you're like, oh, are they who's doing the laundry? There are all these things that you don't think about.
Yeah.
But it's what we're doing in this new space of life is we have so much chaos.
Yeah.
So many voices.
Oh my goodness.
And then we're like, who do we trust?
Yeah.
And we're trying to figure out, and we forget to go back to what does the word say? What has God been showing me through my whole life?
It's the foundation, yeah.
And if you come into the Christian walk early, take some time to develop.
Yeah.
I think the haunting thing is, did I miss it?
Yeah.
I think there's a generation that feels like they missed the call of God in their life. And it's you just got started.
Right.
You're not out of it. It's just taking time to develop. The enemy sends you these missiles like a pastor, like somebody who's going through a bad day, and they'll or they don't like your gifting.
Yeah.
They wish they had it. Like,
Yeah.
man, I wish I could edit videos.
Yeah.
I wish I could do this.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
no, you don't.
You know,
You know, it's like,
yeah.
I stare at a laptop
Yeah.
for how many hours a day? You don't want this.
No, and because the type of person I am, I like to talk.
Right.
So like what I find myself doing is I find myself like torpedoing myself because I'm like, let me go have this conversation with this person. I know I need to edit this video right now, but I'm gonna go talk for an hour and a half when I could edit for 30 minutes, be done. Then you go have the conversation. Right. But so it's like, yeah, it's one of those things of like you're having to balance so much, and like we both kind of come in this place of like, when you come into your own and you come into your own belief system, you come into your own roots and you have your own belief, like then you can accelerate things. Then you can really start to walk in things that you've always dreamed of. And the other thing too is like, and it's so cliche, but look, I mean, you look at when Jesus started his ministry, he wasn't 15 years old.
No.
And it's like, and I get it, it's so cliche. Everyone says it, but it's like, but then it's a principle.
Yeah.
You don't have to be young to start things. Like, and I get it. I get the whole it's Jesus, right? But he walked through something to show us like,
so being a little older than you.
Yeah.
There is something to it.
Yeah.
And so when I turned 33, someone's like, "Oh, you're about to see the death." And I'm like, "No, no." But then I saw this stuff just not go the way I wanted it to.
Right.
And then Steve Hill, who did the revival in Pensacola, he had a big thing on 40. That when a man turns 40, there's a shift in your whole life. Like you've pretty much been a father. You're married at this point. Your seasons change. And they're like, that's the launching ground of your ministry. And I was like, I rebuke that because I was 34, 35. And now being in my 40s, seeing it, there are timely principles to God. I'm not saying if you're in your 20s or 30s, you have to wait till you're 40.
Of course not.
There's an additional blessing.
Yeah.
You see Jeremiah, I'm going to do you with the words, yes, you're young and youthful. But I think we're in a race with the way the world is right now to make sure our video is seen on a social media platform. If I don't get it out, they're going to beat me to it. And we're got away from God's principles of just developing. Like you said, seed, then time and harvest. And that's been a theme around here.
100%.
Is that we need to put seed in, wait for the time, not give up, and wait for that harvest.
Well, one thing we've seen here is that we'll allow good intentions to be thieves of the harvest. So like good intentions of, well, we want to get this right. Good intentions of, well, this needs to be perfect. And perfection and being right and how we see it and interpret it has robbed time.
Right.
And then
money.
And
other things we could have
and it's like, and then you look back and you're like, man, like I wish we would have just done what we did.
Right.
Like, well, we were, it's like, would someone have watched? Maybe not. But at the same time, like we needed, because we've learned and we've said this so much, but like if we wouldn't have done the culture show, if we wouldn't have done the things that we've killed around here, the Tuesday morning prayer, if we wouldn't have done those things, then they wouldn't be the fruition they are now.
Right.
And they wouldn't be, and then we wouldn't be where we're at.
Right. Developed us.
Yeah.
And I think we're not telling you not to be around people like, I feel like I'll do this. Like you're not a lone wolf.
No.
Because what ends up happening is that's what the enemy really wants.
Oh, yeah.
Out of these hurts is to become lone wolves.
Yeah.
We get away from the pack. We think I'll never get hurt again. So I'm going to isolate. I'm not going to be around Christian leaders because they don't know what's going on in my life. And that's not how God sees it.
Right.
And in the last, I'd say month, we've had about 5 to 6 guests come through here. And it's been such a boost to morale, especially for myself, when people are like, wow, you guys really do this? Like, this is like a high end.
Yeah.
Because to us, it's just
what we do.
Normal, like, wow, we have this.
We built this,
we've lost the luster because it's just normal.
Yeah.
But it's also good. That's why God wants you to bring in people because they give another perspective.
Right. 100%.
You just need to find the healthy perspective.
Yeah.
Because it takes time to find them.
Yeah, it does. And and that's the thing is, but these are all things we've learned because we're okay with saying, if things aren't moving, we're okay not being insecure and just going, okay, well, there's something going on. Something we need to fix. I think one thing we always used to say is like, okay, let's just keep pushing forward. Like, let's not just sit here and go, oh, this isn't working. Like, what can we do to like push forward? Because I think the one thing too is like movement can help you a lot of times just doing things like, and I get it. Sometimes like you have to overexert and then you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Like, or oh, I've overexerted. I didn't need to do that. But I think the one thing we learned here is like by moving and doing things and changing and trialing and erroring things is like, that's where we grew the most.
Right.
Was when, and that's the other thing too, is a lot of times as a team, we grew because it wasn't just like me stretching or you stretching. It was the whole team stretching. Brian stretching, Vinny stretching.
But it was all done at different times.
Yes, 100%.
It was never like, we're going to sit around the fire.
Right.
We're going to address all our issues.
Yeah.
There was moments where each person individually was growing.
Yep.
And by us all letting that person grow,
right,
we've now grown as a ministry.
100%.
And I think of the world does it so well.
Mm-hmm.
You see these radical artists
Mm-hmm.
who are willing to live on a couch,
Yeah.
live in a warehouse so they can get their art studio, and the world is commending them.
Yeah.
Like, look at the risk takers. But in the church world,
Mm-hmm.
when you take risks because others aren't willing to, they
Yeah.
go, I don't think you're supposed to. I just feel like the Lord is saying in this season,
Yeah.
no, you have these kids.
Yep.
This is like not
Yeah.
the time to be traveling.
Yeah. Yep. It's irresponsible. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know in 10 years if your boys are even going to know you were gone
They won't.
for the 3.5 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They won't. Yeah.
Your wife might, but
Yeah. My wife will. All for the rest of her life. She'll
Yeah.
remember.
She has that plaque. That's
Oh, yeah.
emailed in
Yep. You owe me 3
Yeah.
weeks for the rest of your life.
Oh, I'm still in the owe me.
Yeah.
My wife is going to take a trip here to,
Yeah.
to owe her. But
yeah.
we got to be risk takers. And
Yeah.
a lot of times in the Christian world, that's a fear.
Right.
Step out in faith.
Right.
We don't, and then other people do want to kill your
Mhm.
stepping out because they thought that was their spot.
Exactly.
I thought
yeah.
I was going to be the one.
Yeah.
And it's like, look, there's so much space in the Christian body.
Yeah.
God has designed it for none of us to step on each other's toes or
Yeah.
positions.
No.
But when we come together, the body functions
Yeah.
better.
Yep. Yeah.
And so
Yeah. Collaboration's a big deal, man. And a lot of people skip over that because their own personal aspirations.
Christian world, the
Yeah.
world figured it
No.
out. There's always a collab
Oh, yeah.
done together.
100%. Yeah. Because everybody's going opportunity, money. Like
Right.
people are seeing that. And us, we're just like, well, they're going to take away from my reach. It's like, come on, man.
They say the opposite. Opportunity.
Yeah.
That should have been my money.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
should have
yeah,
been my.
yeah,
and so we have to
exactly.
look at it differently. Is that
Yeah.
that's why the Bible said to go out.
Yeah.
When
yeah.
you one prays, there's 1,000. But when
Of course,
two pray,
yeah.
there's 10,000. We
Right.
got to think
Group. Yeah.
holistically. And these are those conversations you rarely get to hear unless you pull up to the right coffee table.
Yeah.
And that's why we have these. Is that
Yeah.
we've gone through things.
Mhm.
But we never stopped giving up.
Right.
We never stopped believing in the core beliefs of what
Yeah.
the Bible tells us,
Yeah.
even though men and women have let us down.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
And
yeah.
so it
Yeah.
can be challenging at
Yeah.
times, right?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. But, we made it. We pushed through. So,
Yep. And we're still going.
yeah, still going. So, well, it was good.
Yep.
So, all right. We'll see y'all
See
next
ya.
week.